The smell hit me first, gardenias mixed with cigar smoke and something metallic I didn't want to identify. My hands were steady as I arranged the flowers in the massive crystal vase, but inside, everything trembled. 3 weeks. That's how long I'd been working at the Rossini estate in the hills above Seattle, and I still jumped every time a door slammed. "You're doing it wrong." The voice came from behind me, small and serious. I turned to find Lucia Rossini, 7 years old with her father's dark eyes and her dead mother's stubborn chin, watching me with the intensity of someone 3 times her age. She wore a black velvet dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, but her hair was tangled, like she'd been hiding in the gardens again. "The gardenias," she continued, pointing with one small finger. "Papa hates them at the bottom. They remind him of funerals." I looked at the arrangement, then back at her. In 3 weeks, this was the most she'd spoken to me. The other staff had warned me. Lucia hadn't said more than 10 words to anyone since her mother's death 6 months ago. Even her father, the infamous Nico Rossini, struggled to reach her. "Where should they go then?" I asked, keeping my voice soft, treating her opinion with the seriousness she clearly craved. She studied the vase with the concentration of an artist. Between the roses, like secrets. My heart clenched at the poetry of it. This child who'd seen too much, speaking in metaphors about hidden things. I carefully rearranged the flowers, tucking the white gardenias between the deep red roses until they were visible but not prominent. "Better?" I asked. She nodded, a ghost of approval flickering across her face. Then, as suddenly as she'd appeared, she was gone, her small feet silent on the marble floors. "She doesn't usually talk to the help." This voice made me freeze completely, deep, accented with traces of Italian that 2 generations in America hadn't erased. Nico Rossini stood in the doorway of the morning room, his presence filling the space like smoke fills a room. Invisible, but suffocating. I'd seen him exactly 3 times since starting work. Once during my interview with his house manager. Once passing in the hallway where his gaze had lingered a moment too long. And now, each time my body had reacted the same way. Hyper-aware, fight or flight instincts screaming while something else, something dangerous, whispered stay. "I'm sorry, Mr. Rossini. She was just teaching you about my preferences." He moved into the room with the controlled grace of a predator. His suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored to his broad shoulders and narrow waist. The morning light caught the silver beginning to thread through his black hair at the temples. "She's right. I do hate gardenias at the bottom." I stepped back from the vase instinctively, but there was nowhere to go. The table was behind me, and he was between me and the door. I'll remember that. His eyes, dark as coffee, dark as midnight, studied me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "You're the new one, Rebecca." "Yes, sir. The one from the agency who has a master's degree in art history." It wasn't a question. Of course he knew. Men like Nico Rossini knew everything about everyone who entered their domain. "I needed the work," I said, hating how defensive I sounded. "And we needed someone with a gentler touch. The last 3 housekeepers made Lucia cry." He moved closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive and masculine that made my pulse quicken. "You haven't made her cry. That's a pretty low bar for success." The words escaped before I could stop them. In the 3 weeks I'd been here, I'd perfected the art of being invisible, of saying nothing beyond "yes, sir," and "right away." But something about him, about the way he looked at me like I was a puzzle to solve, made my careful control slip. His laugh was unexpected, rich and genuine, transforming his face from dangerous to devastating. "You have opinions. Good. The mice who scurry through here, afraid of their own shadows. They bore me." A commotion from the front of the house saved me from responding. Raised voices, rapid Italian, and then the unmistakable sound of something breaking. Nico's entire demeanor changed in an instant. The lazy amusement vanished, replaced by something lethal. "Stay here," he commanded, already moving toward the door. But I recognized one of the voices, Lucia's high, frightened cry, and my feet moved without permission. I followed him through the marble hallways, my soft-soled shoes silent on the floors I'd polished just yesterday. In the front foyer, chaos. 2 men in expensive suits flanked a third, who was on his knees, blood dripping from his nose onto the white marble. Lucia stood frozen on the grand staircase, her eyes wide with terror. "I told you." Nico's voice was different now, cold as winter wind. "Never to come to my home." "Please, Mr. Rossini, I can explain." "Papa." Lucia's voice cracked. That's when Nico saw us, his daughter terrified on the stairs, and me, who had directly disobeyed his order to stay put. His jaw clenched, a muscle ticking beneath the skin. "Marco," he said to one of his men, never taking his eyes off me. "Take our guest somewhere more appropriate for this conversation. And you," his gaze pinned me in place, "take Lucia upstairs. Now." I didn't need to be told twice. I moved to the stairs, holding out my hand to the little girl. "Come on, sweetheart. Let's go find something more interesting than this." She looked between her father and me, then placed her small hand in mine. It was cold, trembling slightly. I led her up the stairs, but not before I heard Nico's voice, low and dangerous. "You brought this to my home, where my daughter could see. That was your last mistake." Lucia's room was a princess's dream in shades of pink and gold, but she bypassed all the toys and went straight to the window seat, curling up small. "That man was scared," she said quietly. I sat beside her, not touching, just present. "Yes, he was." "Of Papa?" "Yes." She was quiet for a long moment. "Mama wasn't scared of him. She used to laugh when everyone else was frightened." "Your mother sounds brave." "She was." Lucia picked at the hem of her dress. "Are you scared of him?" I thought about lying, but children always knew. "Sometimes." "But you followed him anyway, when he told you to stay." "I heard you cry." She looked at me then, really looked at me, with those 2 knowing eyes. The other ladies would have stayed. Before I could respond, the door opened. Nico filled the doorframe, his suit still perfect, despite whatever had happened downstairs. His gaze went to his daughter first, checking her over, then to me. "Leave us," he said. I started to rise, but Lucia's hand shot out, grabbing mine. "No." "I want her to stay." "Lucia, you promised." The words exploded from her, months of grief and anger finally finding voice. "You promised after Mama that I could choose. You promised I wouldn't have to be alone anymore." The transformation in Nico's face was subtle but complete. The hard edges softened, the dangerous man becoming just a father. "Piccola, Rebecca stays," Lucia said firmly, "or I won't talk anymore, to anyone." The silence stretched taut between them. I held perfectly still, aware I was witnessing something private, a negotiation between father and daughter that had nothing and everything to do with me. Finally, Nico nodded. "Rebecca stays." He moved into the room, somehow making the feminine space accommodate his masculine presence. He sat on Lucia's other side, and for a moment, I was acutely aware of how this looked. Like a family. Like I belonged here between them. "The man downstairs," he began carefully, "owed me something. When people owe me things and don't pay, I have to... I know what you do, Papa." Lucia's voice was tired, too old. Mama explained before she died. The family business. My blood chilled. The family business. I'd suspected, of course. You didn't live in Seattle and not hear whispers about the Rossini family, but suspecting and knowing were different things. Then you know I keep it away from here. From you. His hand reached over, covering Lucia's small one. That was a mistake. It won't happen again. Promise? I promise. She nodded, seemingly satisfied, then yawned widely. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving exhaustion in its wake. Rest, Piccola, Nico murmured. Rebecca will stay with you. It wasn't a question. Lucia curled against me, her head on my lap, and within minutes her breathing evened out. I stroked her tangled hair gently, working through the knots with patient fingers. She hasn't let anyone do that since her mother, Nico said quietly, watching us. She's been alone in her grief. We both have. The admission hung between us. I kept my eyes on Lucia's hair, aware of his gaze on me, heavy as a touch. You disobeyed me, he said finally. When I told you to stay. She was frightened. That's not an excuse. I looked up then, meeting his dark eyes. It's a reason. You're not afraid of me. It wasn't quite a question. I told Lucia I was, but not enough to stop you from doing what you thought was right. He leaned back in his chair, studying me. That's either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. That laugh again, quiet this time to not wake Lucia. You're not what I expected when the agency sent you. What did you expect? Someone forgettable. His gaze traveled over my face, lingering on my mouth before returning to my eyes. You're many things, Rebecca, but forgettable isn't one of them. The air between us shifted, charged with something that made my skin feel too tight. I looked back down at Lucia, using her as a shield against whatever this was. She needs stability, I said. Routine. Someone who won't leave. And is that you? Someone who won't leave? The question carried weight beyond employment. I could feel it, the subtle shift that happened when powerful men decided they wanted something. The calculations that started running behind those dark eyes. I just work here, Mr. Rossini. Nico, he corrected. When we're alone, call me Nico. We're not alone. Lucia doesn't count. She already knows. Knows what? He stood, moving with that fluid grace to the door. Just before leaving, he turned back. That you're not just the help anymore. The door closed with a soft click, leaving me with a sleeping child and the growing certainty that I'd stepped into something I couldn't step out of. Over the next weeks, everything changed, and nothing changed. I still arrived at 7 each morning, still polished silver and arranged flowers, and kept the massive estate running smoothly. But now, Lucia sought me out constantly, a small shadow trailing me through my duties. She helped me fold linens, her small hands precise. She sat on the kitchen counter while I supervised dinner preparations, stealing tastes and offering opinions. She started talking. Not just words, but torrents. Months of silence breaking like a dam. And Nico watched. I felt his gaze everywhere. When I served breakfast, he was there, newspaper in hand but eyes tracking my movements. When I worked in the garden, he appeared on the terrace, phone to his ear but attention on me. When I put Lucia to bed, a duty that had somehow become mine without anyone asking, he lingered in the doorway, a dark silhouette against the hall light. You're good for her, he said one evening, after Lucia had finally fallen asleep after 3 stories and 2 glasses of water. She's easy to love. No, he corrected, moving into the room. She's not. She's difficult and demanding and too smart for her own good, but you love her anyway. I couldn't deny it. Somewhere between the first word she'd spoken to me and now, I'd fallen completely for this broken, brilliant child. "That's dangerous," he continued, closer now. "Loving a Rossini. Why?" "Because we don't let go." His hand reached out, fingers ghosting over a strand of my hair that had escaped its ponytail. "Once you're ours forever." My heart hammered against my ribs. "I'm not yours." "Aren't you?" He tucked the strand behind my ear, his fingers lingering against my neck. "You're in my house, caring for my daughter, wearing the clothes I bought because yours weren't suitable, eating at my table, sleeping under my roof. That's employment, not ownership." "Is it?" He was so close now I could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes, could count the faint lines that stress and sun had carved at their corners. "Then quit." "What?" "If you're just an employee, quit. Walk away." His thumb traced the line of my jaw, a touch so light I might have imagined it. "The door's right there." I should have moved, should have stepped back, walked out, fled this house with its beautiful dangers and complicated grief. But I stood frozen, caught between his body and Lucia's bed, between freedom and something else entirely. "She needs me," I whispered. "Yes." His other hand came up, framing my face between his palms. "But that's not why you'll stay." Before I could ask what he meant, his mouth was on mine. The kiss was nothing like I'd expected from a man so controlled. It was desperate, hungry, months of watched wanting condensed into the press of lips and slide of tongue. I gasped, and he deepened the kiss, backing me against the wall with a possessiveness that should have frightened me. Instead, I burned. My hands came up to his chest, feeling the heat of him through his expensive shirt, the hammer of his heart matching mine. He kissed like he was drowning, and I was air, like he'd been starving and I was feast. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. "Tell me to stop," he said against my mouth. "Tell me you're just the help, that this is inappropriate, that I'm taking advantage." "You are." "Yes." He kissed me again, softer this time, but no less devastating. "Tell me to stop." "I can't." "Why?" "Because I was lonely, because I was lost, because somewhere between arranging flowers and loving his daughter, I'd started wanting him too. But I couldn't say any of that. "Nico, Papa?" We jerked apart like teenagers caught by parents. Lucia stood in her bed, rubbing her eyes, looking between us with a confusion that quickly shifted to something else. Hope, maybe. "Are you staying?" she asked me. "Forever?" I looked at Nico, who was watching me with an intensity that made my knees weak. "She's staying," he said, never taking his eyes off me. "Aren't you, Rebecca?" It wasn't really a question. Men like Nico Rossini didn't ask questions they didn't already know the answers to. "Yes," I heard myself say. "I'm staying." Lucia smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her, and lay back down. "Good. The house is better with you in it." As I tucked her back in, I felt the weight of what I'd just agreed to. Not just a job, not just caring for a grieving child. Something more. Something that would either save or destroy me. When we left Lucia's room, Nico caught my hand. "There's no going back now," he warned. "Once you're in my world, really in it, there's no leaving." "What cage?" I asked, the question escaping before I could stop it. "What cage are you putting me in?" His smile was dark, possessive, absolutely certain. "The one where you're mine." The words should have sent me running. Instead, they settled into my bones like prophecy, like fate, like a door closing on one life and opening on another. Over the following days, the boundaries of my position blurred beyond recognition. I still performed my duties, but now Nico's hand would brush mine when I served coffee. Now he'd pull me into his study after Lucia was asleep, pouring me wine and asking about my abandoned doctorate, my family back in Ohio, my dreams I'd put on hold for practical survival. Why art history? He asked one night, watching me over the rim of his glass. I wanted to understand how beauty survives violence, I admitted, the wine loosening my tongue. How precious things endure through history's darkest moments. Something shifted in his expression. And what have you learned? That someone has to choose to protect them. Beauty doesn't survive on its own. No, he agreed quietly. It doesn't. The next morning, I found a first edition art history text on my workspace, worth more than I'd make in a year. No note, but I knew. These gifts continued. Books, scarves, jewelry I couldn't possibly wear while cleaning. Each one pushing the boundaries of appropriate, each one marking me more clearly as his. People are starting to notice. Maria, the cook, warned me one afternoon. The way he looks at you. The way you're with the little one. You're not just anything. Not anymore. She glanced around nervously. Others have tried, you know. After the mistress died, he sent them all away. But not me. No, she agreed. Not you. The question is why. I knew why, or thought I did. It was Lucia. How she'd started smiling again, started eating properly, started acting like a child instead of a ghost. But late at night, when I lay in my small room on the 3rd floor, I wondered if there was more. If the heat in Nico's eyes was just gratitude or something deeper. The answer came during a family dinner, a monthly gathering I usually served at, but remained invisible during. This time, Lucia insisted I sit with them. She's not family, Nico's brother Dante protested, eyeing me with suspicion. She is to me, Lucia said firmly, her hand in mine under the table. The child's attached, their mother Sophia observed. She was elegant in the way of women who'd been beautiful all their lives and knew how to wield it. But attachment and belonging are different things. Mama, Nico's voice carried warning. I'm simply pointing out the obvious, darling. The girl is lovely, clearly good for Lucia, but she's also... She gestured vaguely at me. Not us. You mean I'm not Italian, not from money, not part of your world. The table went silent. Even Lucia held her breath. Sophia smiled, sharp as glass. Exactly. You understand perfectly. I understand that your son needs help raising your granddaughter. I understand that Lucia has been neglected since her mother's death, while you all played power games and counted money. Rebecca, Nico warned. But I was past caring. I understand that this child was drowning in grief while surrounded by family too busy or too important to notice. So yes, Mrs. Rossini, I'm not you. Thank God for that. The silence was deafening. Then Dante laughed, loud and genuine. I like her, Nico. She's got spine. Too much spine for her own good, Sophia said coldly. Enough. Nico's hand covered mine on the table, a public claim that made his mother's eyes narrow. Rebecca stays. With my blessing and protection, anyone who has a problem with that has a problem with me. The threat was implicit, but clear. One by one, his family nodded acceptance, though Sophia's eyes promised this wasn't over. After dinner, Nico found me in the garden, where I'd fled to cool my burning cheeks. That was either very brave or very stupid, he said, echoing his words from weeks ago. Your mother hates me. My mother hates everyone. She barely tolerated Lucia's mother, and they'd known each other since childhood. Then why? Because you were right. He pulled me against him, my back to his chest, his arms caging me. We were failing her. I was failing her, lost in my own grief, my own guilt. Guilt? Her mother's death wasn't entirely natural. My blood chilled. Someone killed her. Someone tried to kill me. She was just in the wrong place. His arms tightened around me. That's what this world is, Rebecca. Violence that spreads like poison, touching everything clean. I turned in his arms to face him. Is that a warning? It's a truth. Being mine means being a target. I'm not yours, I protested, but even I could hear how weak it sounded. No? His hand came up to my throat, thumb pressing against my pulse point where my heart hammered betrayal. Your body says otherwise. Your choices say otherwise. This is just... what? Chemistry? Proximity? Convenience? He backed me against the garden wall, his body caging mine. Tell me you don't think about that kiss. Tell me you don't want more. I couldn't. We both knew I couldn't. There are things about my life you don't know, he continued. Dangerous things. Dark things. I know enough. Do you? His laugh was bitter. You know I'm a criminal. You don't know what that means. The blood on my hands. The enemies who would hurt you just to hurt me. Then let me go. I can't. The admission seemed to pain him. I've tried. Told myself you're too good, too clean, too much like her. Your wife? She was innocent when I met her. I destroyed that. Pulled her into this world and it killed her. His forehead pressed against mine. I should send you away. Give you money, a reference, a new life somewhere safe. But you won't. No. I'm too selfish for that. His mouth brushed mine, not quite a kiss. Stay tonight. Nico. Not in my bed. Just stay. Let me pretend for one night that this is simple, that you're mine without the weight of what that means. I should have said no, should have walked away. Instead, I let him lead me to his study, where we sat by the fire drinking wine and talking until dawn. He told me about growing up in this life, the expectations and violence that shaped him. I told him about growing up poor but happy, about parents who died too young, and dreams deferred but not destroyed. When the sun rose, painting the room gold, he kissed me again. Soft, careful, like I was something precious he was afraid to break. Choose, he said against my lips. Now, while you still can. Stay and be mine completely, or leave and never look back. That's not a choice. Lucia needs... This isn't about Lucia anymore. His eyes burned into mine. This is about us. About what I'll do if you stay. What will you do? Everything. The promise in that word made me shiver. I'll make you my queen, my partner. The mother Lucia needs, and the woman I can't live without. But I'll also make you a target. Cage you in silk and gold, but cage you nonetheless. I thought about my empty apartment across the city, my abandoned degree, my life of serving others while my own dreams gathered dust. Then I thought about Lucia's smile, Nico's rare laugh, the way this house had started feeling like home. What cage? I asked. I don't see any cage. His smile was dark, triumphant, absolutely male. The one where you're mine, he answered, pulling me against him. Where you belong to me, and I belong to you, and neither of us ever lets go. This time when he kissed me, I kissed back with equal fervor, choosing my beautiful prison, choosing him, choosing to stay. The aftermath of my choice came swift as winter wind. Within days, everything changed. My things were moved from the servants' quarters to a suite adjoining Nico's. My simple clothes were replaced with designer pieces that cost more than my previous yearly salary. A bodyguard, Marco, was assigned to shadow me whenever I left the estate. Is this really necessary? I asked Nico, watching Marco stand guard while I grocery shopped. You're mine now, he replied simply. That makes you valuable and vulnerable. I learned what he meant the hard way. It happened at Lucia's school. I'd gone to pick her up, a routine I'd adopted since becoming whatever I was now. Not quite wife, more than employee. The other mothers watched me with speculation and barely concealed judgment. You're the new one, a woman said, approaching with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The help who got promoted. I recognized her type. Old money, inherited privilege, the kind who viewed people like me as curiosities at best, threats at worst. "I'm Rebecca," I said simply. "I know who you are. Everyone does. Nico Rossini's latest acquisition." The word stung as intended. "I'm not a possession." "Aren't you?" She looked me over dismissively. "Bought and paid for, from what I hear. Though I suppose it's better than scrubbing floors." Before I could respond, Marco was there, his presence suddenly menacing despite his calm expression. "Mrs. Colombo," he said quietly, "your husband owes Mr. Rossini a considerable debt. Perhaps you should be more careful with your words." The woman paled, stepping back. "I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did." Nico's voice came from behind me, making everyone in the vicinity freeze. He moved past me to stand slightly in front, a protective gesture that wasn't lost on anyone watching. "But you won't make that mistake again. Mr. Rossini, Your husband's debt was 50,000. It's now 75. His tone was conversational, but the threat underneath was clear. "Would you like to continue this conversation?" She fled. Actually fled, practically running to her car. "Papa!" Lucia appeared, throwing herself at her father, then at me. "You both came." "Always, Piccola," Nico murmured, but his eyes were on me. "Are you all right?" I didn't need rescuing. "No," he agreed. "But I needed to make a point. You're under my protection. Anyone who disrespects you, disrespects me." That night, after Lucia was asleep, I confronted him in his study. "I can't live like this, with you fighting my battles." "Then fight them yourself," he said, surprising me. "But understand that your battles are my battles now. Your enemies, my enemies. I don't have enemies. You do now, simply by being with me." He pulled me onto his lap, his hands spanning my waist. "The Colombos, the Morettis, the Chens. All the families who want what I have, or revenge for what I've taken. What have you taken? Territory, power, respect." His hands tightened on me. "Things that can't be given back. And if I can't handle this, the danger, the violence always lurking, then I'll keep you safe despite yourself." He buried his face in my neck, breathing me in. "I told you there was no leaving." "That sounds like a threat." "It's a promise." He pulled back to look at me. "I've lost one woman I love to this life. I won't lose another." The word hung between us. Love. Neither of us had said it before. "Nico, I know it's too soon. I know you didn't ask for this. But it's done." His thumb traced my cheekbone. "I'm in love with you. Have been since you stood up to my mother at that dinner." "That's insane. Everything about this is insane." He kissed me, deep and desperate. "Say you feel it too. Say I'm not alone in this madness." I thought about lying. About protecting myself. But what was the point? I was already in too deep. "You're not alone," I whispered. He made a sound like I'd shot him, then kissed me like he was dying. His hands were everywhere. My hair, my back, pulling me closer until I couldn't tell where I ended, and he began. "Stay with me tonight," he breathed against my mouth. "In my bed. Let me show you how good this can be." Every rational part of me screamed to slow down, to think, to remember that I'd only been in this house 2 months. But rationality had fled the moment I'd chosen to stay. Yes. He carried me to his room, laying me on sheets that probably cost more than my old car. He undressed me slowly, reverently, like I was art he was privileged to witness. "Beautiful," he murmured, tracing patterns on my skin that felt like promises. Mine. That night, he showed me exactly what belonging to him meant. The possession and devotion, the intensity that bordered on obsession. He loved like he did everything else, completely, without reservation, with a focus that should have terrified me. Instead, I drowned in it. In him. Afterward, as I lay in his arms watching the city lights through his window, reality crept back in. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now you move in here permanently. Now Lucia calls you Mama if she wants. Now you learn the rest." "The rest?" "The business, the real business." He pressed a kiss to my shoulder. "If you're going to be my queen, you need to know the kingdom." "I don't know if I can." "You can." His certainty was absolute. "You're stronger than you know. Smarter. More capable of darkness than you realize." "How do you know?" "Because you chose this. Chose me. Despite knowing what I am." His arms tightened around me. "That takes a particular kind of strength." Or stupidity, I thought, but didn't say. The next weeks were an education. Nico introduced me gradually to his world. The legitimate businesses that fronted illegal ones. The hierarchy of respect and fear. The careful balance of violence and diplomacy that kept his empire stable. I met his lieutenants, men who looked at me with curiosity and careful respect. I learned which judges he owned, which cops, which politicians. I discovered that the Rossini name opened doors I hadn't known existed. And through it all, Lucia bloomed. She started calling me Mama without prompting, started laughing freely, started being a child again. The house filled with her joy, and even Nico's mother grudgingly admitted I'd been good for them. "She was dying inside," Sophia said one afternoon, watching Lucia play in the garden. "We all were. You brought us back to life. I just loved her." "Yes, and him. He's different with you. Lighter. More like he was before." She trailed off. "Before his wife died. Before he became what this life demanded." She turned to me, her expression serious. "Can you handle it? Really handle it? Not just the danger, but the moral complexity? The choices he makes that you'll have to live with?" Before I could answer, Marco appeared, his expression tense. "We have a problem." Nico emerged from his office, his demeanor shifting instantly from businessman to predator. "What kind of problem?" "The Morettis. They've taken something that belongs to us." "What?" Marco's eyes flicked to me. "Someone." The blood drained from my face. "Lucia?" "She's upstairs with the nanny," Marco assured me quickly. "But they've taken your friend, the one from your old building, Sarah." I hadn't even known they knew about Sarah. We'd been friends before I'd moved here. Occasional coffee dates and text conversations. The idea that Nico's enemies had been watching me that closely, that they'd identified my connections. "Why?" I asked. "To send a message," Nico said grimly. "To show they can reach you. To test me. We have to. We will." He cupped my face in his hands. "I'll get her back. But this is what I warned you about. Being mine makes everyone you care about a target. Then I'll cut ties with everyone. No." His thumb stroked my cheeks. "I won't let them make you small. Won't let fear shrink your world." He turned to Marco. "Call everyone. Full meeting in an hour." "Nico." I grabbed his arm as he started to leave. Don't become a monster for me." His smile was sharp as a blade. "Darling, I've always been a monster. The only difference is now I have something worth being monstrous for." That night, while Nico hunted for my friend, I sat with Lucia, holding her while she slept, feeling the weight of this life settling on my shoulders. The luxury and protection came with a price. Constant vigilance, moral compromise, the knowledge that my choices affected innocent people. Sarah was returned unharmed but terrified, with a message. The Rossini woman isn't untouchable. They're wrong, Nico told me afterward, blood on his knuckles that wasn't his. You're the most protected woman in this city, but protection isn't immunity. What did you do to get her back? What I had to. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you'll get. He pulled me against him, his embrace fierce. There are parts of this you can't know, for your safety and your conscience. You mean so I can pretend I'm not complicit? Yes. His honesty was brutal. So you can look Lucia in the eye and not see her father's sins. So you can love me without hating yourself. I need air. He let me go, and I found myself in the garden where this had all started. The roses were blooming, their scent heavy in the night air. I thought about my old life, simple, safe, small. Then I thought about Lucia's laugh, Nico's rare smiles, the way this complicated family had become mine. The cage is beautiful, isn't it? Sophia stood beside me, elegant in her silk robe. Is that what you call it? A cage? All lives are cages, dear. The only choice is whether you pick your own or let someone else pick it for you. She studied the roses. I chose this one 40 years ago. Chose Nico's father despite knowing what he was. Bore 3 sons into this life. Do you regret it? Every day. And never. She looked at me. That's what loving dangerous men means. Living with contradiction. How do you stand it? By remembering that without the darkness, there would be no light. Without the monster, no protector. Without the cage. She smiled sadly. No home. Later that night, as I lay beside Nico, I made my final choice. Not the dramatic one I'd made weeks ago, but the quiet, daily choice to stay despite everything. To love him not in spite of his darkness, but including it. To be his queen in a kingdom built on blood and loyalty. What are you thinking? He asked, sensing my wakefulness. That I understand now. Understand what? What cage you've put me in. I turned to face him in the darkness. It's not made of bars or walls. It's made of love. Lucia's need, your devotion, this family that's claimed me. A cage I walked into willingly and helped build myself. And? His voice was carefully neutral. And I'm never leaving it. I kissed him, pouring my acceptance into it. You were right. Once yours, always yours. Rebecca, but I have conditions. He pulled back slightly. Conditions. Lucia goes to therapy. Real therapy, to process her mother's death properly. You let me maintain some friendships, with proper security. And sometimes, just sometimes, you let me pretend we're normal. That we're just a family who loves each other without all the complications. Done. Anything else? Yes. I took a breath. Marry me. He went completely still. What? You heard me. If I'm going to be yours, be in this cage, then I want it official, legal. Lucia needs a real mother, not just father's girlfriend. Your mother needs to see I'm not temporary. Your enemies need to know I'm not just under your protection, but part of you, Rebecca. And I need to know that this choice I've made, this life I've accepted, means as much to you as it does to me. He was quiet for so long I thought he might refuse. Then he laughed, soft and wondering. I was going to wait. Do it properly. The ring, the restaurant, I don't need proper. I need real. He kissed me then, deep and claiming and absolutely devastating. Yes. God, yes. Tomorrow if you want. Maybe not tomorrow. Lucia would kill us if she couldn't be Flower Girl. We planned it for a month later. Small, family only, in the garden where I'd made my choice. Lucia wore white to match me, throwing rose petals with abandon. Nico's brothers stood as witnesses. Even Sophia smiled genuinely. "Do you know what you're doing?" the officiant asked quietly before we began. He was a judge, owned by Nico, but his concern seemed real. "Yes," I said simply. The vows were traditional with one exception. Where it said, "Till death do us part," Nico said, "beyond death itself. A promise and a threat. A love that wouldn't end even with ending." That night, as my new husband held me, I asked, "No regrets?" "Never. You?" I thought about Sarah's terrified face, the blood on Nico's knuckles, the guards that would always shadow us. Then I thought about Lucia calling me Mama, Nico's rare laugh, the family I'd found in the most unexpected place. "Never," I echoed. The cage was golden, beautiful, sometimes suffocating. But it was mine. I'd chosen it, decorated it with love and loyalty, made it home. And like any bird who'd forgotten how to fly, I'd learned to sing within its bars. The danger would always exist. The moral compromises would continue. The world would judge me for choosing this, choosing him. But as Nico pulled me closer, as Lucia padded in at midnight claiming nightmares just to sleep between us, as this strange, violent, loving family wrapped around me like armor, I knew the truth. Some cages were worth choosing. Some monsters were worth loving. And some freedoms were found not in escape, but in surrender to the exact place you belonged. "I love you," I whispered into the darkness. "And I love you," he replied. "My queen, my conscience, my perfectly caged bird who chose her own bars." I smiled against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, steady and strong and mine. Forever mine. The cage door was open. It always had been. I simply chose never to fly away.